polls are now closed across the lower 48 United States. Let's check in on the race to 270 electoral votes. That's the number needed to win the White House. Here is where we stand right now. As you see, Donald Trump has 211, Kamala Harris 165. And part of those electoral votes include two new CBS News projections, Oregon and Washington State, both for the vice president. And in those all-important battleground states, you can see all 7 are in purple. In Georgia, CBS News now rates the presidential race there as lean Republican. And in North Carolina, CBS News now rates the race as lean Republican. Let's take a look at Pennsylvania, part of that blue wall the Democrats say a must-win for the vice president. CBS News rates this race as toss-up. In Michigan, CBS News rates this race as a toss-up. The Secretary of State there telling us they could have the vote counted by midnight. That doesn't mean we'll understand or know what that full vote is, but that could come quickly. And Wisconsin, CBS News rates this race as a toss-up at this hour. Let's check in on more of the Sun Belt states, including Arizona. Just about half the vote there in Arizona. Look how close it is, those prized 11 electoral votes. It is a toss-up at this hour. And then Nevada. Again, the vote, not enough of the vote yet in, but we rate that as a toss-up at this hour. As I mentioned just a short time ago, there's important news on the United States Senate. Let's go now to Scott MacFarlane, who covers Congress for us. Good evening, Scott.
Nora, this has such outsized impact on the next president. Which party controls the U.S. Senate? The evening began with Democrats and their feet in quicksand, immediately almost losing that West Virginia seat they've held for so many years. And now they are fighting an uphill battle and losing so many of them. Let's go to Ohio first. CBS News projects at this point it leans Republican. Bernie Moreno, the Trump-endorsed businessman from Ohio, leading Sherrod Brown, the 3-term Democratic incumbent from Northeast Ohio. He served in the U.S. House before his 18 years in the U.S. Senate. He literally wrote the book on Congress. Sherrod Brown is in trouble, and the trouble exists elsewhere as well. Let's go to Montana. The military veteran, the political newcomer Tim Sheehy, projected as a lean Republican race in Montana. The 3-term Democratic incumbent John Tester in trouble there. Democrats would have to make inroads into Republican-held states to offset these losses with such a narrow margin for error. They were bullish for a while on their prospects in Texas with Colin Allred, the former NFL player, but Ted Cruz, who eked out a 3-point win in 2018, projected as the winner here, and that is a wider margin with 80% of the vote in. Same deal in Florida. Democrats aspired to being competitive in Florida. Rick Scott projected as the winner there. So there are no more outs for Democrats on this map. They still have to protect the state of Pennsylvania. They still have to protect Nevada. And look at Arizona. This is an open seat. The incumbent senator in Arizona is retiring. Ruben Gallego, the congressman from the Phoenix area, faring well early on. We forecast this one right now as lean Democrat against Carrie Lake, who lost her bid for governor 2 years ago. Let me quickly show you the U.S. House. Oh, by the way, control of the U.S. House is at stake tonight. I'm standing in the very narrow battleground seat races that exist. The magic number here is clear, 218. There really is a bunch of offsetting dynamics so far, Nora. Quickly, in New York, Democrats making some inroads. There's a lean race that was held by a first-term Republican on Long Island, another one in central New York and Syracuse. Democrats faring well early, but Republicans also seem to be out of the gates good in some of their battleground races from Iowa through the Tidewater area of Virginia. A long road to haul in the battle for control of the U.S. House.
Really interesting there in Virginia. Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much. Scott, I'm sorry, can I just, does it look like Republicans could control both chambers?
Oh, that's certainly in play. The field is narrow in the U.S. House in several ways. Again, these are the battleground seats, the white chairs that surround me. Democrats net a gain of 4 seats They have the majority. They'll have the Speaker of the House, likely to be Hakeem Jeffries, for January 6, 2025, in the next 2 years. But the battleground races are not splitting in one way or the other. Well, watch for California, and it's going to take a while. Could take days to measure California. There are a half dozen competitive races there, many of them held by Republicans. Democrats have a big night in California. They can offset losses elsewhere. This is going to take days to figure out the U.S. House, but Republicans are bullish on their prospects.
Really important point. Scott McFarland, thank you very much. Want to bring in CBS Morning's co-host, Gayle King. And Gayle, we've been here now for several hours, and we're getting a little bit of a sense of how the night is going.
Yeah, and it seems that if you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're feeling very confident and encouraged. And if you're a Kamala Harris supporter, you're feeling a little worried at this particular time. Although we keep saying there's still a lot of votes to be counted. People say they still are holding out hope, even though at this particular time she seems to be underperforming in all the things that they thought she would do well. You know, a friend of mine called me from Florida this morning, clearly a red state, and said, you know, America is in labor today, and today we'll find out if we are delivering a boy or a girl. Right now, as you sit here tonight, it looks very good for the Donald Trump team. And I think people are trying to figure out what is happening to Kamala Harris's campaign at this particular point, even though people still have hope.
Well, I think the vote is still being counted in Pennsylvania.
We need to keep emphasizing that.
Yes, and we certainly don't know what's happening in Arizona or Nevada just yet, and
or
Michigan, Wisconsin. So the early states, Georgia and North Carolina, because they were the first to close, we were able to rate them as lean Republican. And so, you know, just as the hours go on and more votes come in, we'll have a better sense, I think, of what's happening there. But look,
you know what I think is troubling, though, Nora, is that she seems to be underperforming in areas that they thought she would do well, certainly among women, certainly among the reproductive rights, certainly among some of the black voters. That's why I think people are so concerned at this particular point.
Gayle, thank you. I want to bring in Robert Costa on that note. Robert?
Just briefly to add to what Scott McFarland was talking about in terms of a possible expanded House majority for Republicans, Speaker Mike Johnson just made remarks in Louisiana to his supporters. He believes he will enter next year as the Speaker of the House should he win the gavel again with more Republicans in the House. He also stated publicly that he believes there will be a Republican Senate and a Republican in the White House in Donald Trump. So you're looking potentially, and to Gayle's point, it's early in the night. A lot of votes still need to be counted, but Republicans are already tonight at this hour getting confident about what could be a very ambitious policy agenda next year.
And it's not just Republican senators. These will be Republican senators, very different than the Republican senators who were there when Donald Trump won in 2016. Jeff Flake, John McCain, Mitt Romney, those three are all gone. And these are Republican senators who grow up out of and into the Trump politics. It'll be if Donald Trump wins, a different Washington, different Republican majority.
We are pleased to be joined now by South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn. And Congressman Clyburn, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So what you have seen so far tonight, do you believe there is still a path to victory for Vice President Harris?
Well, there's still a path, but it's thorny, and we'll see how it comes out. The fact of the matter is that the blue wall is still there, though there seems to be some underperforming in some areas where we thought we were in good shape, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's not over yet.
And what about what you just heard from Speaker Johnson, that he is predicting that he will retain control in the House of Representatives that would prevent a speakership for the Democrats and Hakeem Jeffries?
Well, I hope he's not right about that. I have not looked at all of the House seats, quite frankly. California, I'm sure it's going to be a long time before we find out what happens in California. There are a couple of seats in New York that I've looked at, two that I expected to win. Looks like we have won them, but the other two, not so much. So I'm still not giving up on the fact that we'll get a 1 or 2 vote victory in the House.
As you know, we have called Georgia and North Carolina states near your home state as lean Republican at this hour. As you noted, there is still a blue wall path to victory for the vice president. I know you know just about everybody in the Democratic Party. What is their concern tonight? Where is she underperforming?
There seems to be some underperforming taking place in Pennsylvania, really. I thought that there's some counties in Pennsylvania we seem not to be performing as well then. There's some that we look like we are winning, and still by a lesser margin than I expected. I'm really concerned about Michigan as well. So I hate to, not knowing where all the votes are coming from, I hate to make any predictions based upon the totals unless I knew where they were coming from. When you got 75, 80% of the vote in, it could very well be a pocket that would be favorable to us, but I'll wait to see before making any concessions.
Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you so much for your time. And
Thank
we
you.
have a CBS